Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey,
Mr. President and your VP, and we're back after a long absence with another review.
the
This
last
time
one
around,
was Fight Club.
yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
This time around, it's going to be Whiplash. Now, this is going to be a very special one for him because, as most of you guys well know, he is going to school to be a music instructor, and this is a movie about a pretty bad music instructor.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Uh, I like to look at this film as basically a cautionary tale of what not to do as a music teacher. Because, let's just say this guy is highly abusive.
Yeah. But before we get into all that, let's talk about who stars in the movie. The movie stars Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing as far as his acting ability, but Paul Reiser of Mad About You fame plays Andrew's father.
Hmm.
So, uh, fun fact, I don't know, like I said, if that's a good thing or a bad thing in his case. And it was made for $3.3 million and it made $54.9 million. And it also currently, for those of you who care, holds a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. So go ahead.
So originally, this film was a short film before it became a feature length film. And the short film was basically 17 minutes, and it also starred J.K. Simmons as the cruel jazz instructor of Terrence Fletcher. And it was originally set in a high school and not a prestigious music school in New York. But it's still honestly really good, and it basically won a whole lot of awards. The short film did, and it was because of that investors actually took interest in the film, and eventually it was Blumhouse that bought the rights and helped produce it into the movie we know it as today.
Well, let me stop you for a moment right there, as upon further research here, and it may not be the best source in the world, but according to the Whiplash Wikipedia page, it was actually Blumhouse that helped the director of this get it turned into a short film in the first place,
Yeah,
and then a full-length feature film before that. And before it was a short film, it was also a play. So,
yeah.
with that
That was
being
also
said,
written by the director of the film as well. This
with
is kind of
that
basically his big passion project.
And with that being said, guys, the character of Andrew is he's really passionate about jazz music,
More
and he's
specifically, drumming.
yes, more specifically drumming, and so he needs to get to this specific school taught by this specific instructor
That
because
he admires
the
very
guy
much.
is considered to be the top of the top, and that he has led to numerous success stories throughout the jazz community. So he manages to make it in, barely, by the way. That's kind of a piece that's
Yeah.
overlooked is that Andrew just barely makes it into it. And Fletcher, he does see a lot of potential into him. Go ahead.
So yeah, the film starts out with Andrew basically practicing drumming, and Terrence Fletcher, aka J.K. Simmons' character in the film, overhears Andrew drumming, and he basically wants him to do a couple things, like he wants him to do a double time rhythm, right? And he's kind of unimpressed by it, so he leaves. But then he sees Andrew again in a different music school that's not as prestigious as the one that he teaches at. And he sees him, and he sees that his double time has actually gotten better. And so he then takes him into what he calls the studio band, which is like the most prestigious jazz band at this prestigious school that I forgot the name of, but it's kind of not important anyway. So
It's really not important what the name of the school is. What is important is the relationship that develops henceforth going forward.
yeah,
And with that being said, the relationship that it begins in a way that okay, so Andrew he comes to class, right? And he's like the backup drummer in
yeah,
the
he's
setup
the
to begin
alternate.
with. So with that, he's observations are he's observing what's happening, and he sees that Fletcher has a particular rough kind of style when it comes to teaching. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So Fletcher, he basically like he notices that one of the saxophones is out of tune. So he goes to this fourth chair person, right? And he basically yells at his face. He's like, "Well, are you out of tune or not?" Right? And he like starts swearing at this kid. And he basically and then it essentially boils down to the fact that he's like, "Well, if you can't tell that you're out of tune, then get the out of my room." Yeah.
However, and this is what makes for such a fascinating character, is the fact that Fletcher, boom, immediately switches character, goes, "Oh, no, it's okay. We're all here to have fun. So just do your best, Andrew, and it's going to be okay."
Yeah.
So he puts Andrew on the drums, and then the following thing
Yeah.
happens. Go
And
ahead.
then Andrew, he basically he drags a little bit at first, and then he starts rushing again. And so Fletcher is like, all right, so start counting, in 4/4 time, and then and then Andrew starts counting, and then basically Fletcher then starts hitting him, right? The abuse literally begins right there, guys. And so he literally hits him on the 4 count. He's like, "Was I rushing or was I dragging?" And he's like, "Rushing." And then he keeps doing it again, and then whatnot. And he's like, "You know what? Whatever. Get off my drum set." And then he's like, "You get back on," and whatnot. And yeah, it
So
literally starts right there.
there's another part, and because this is so important, is that there's another part where Andrew's on the drums again. And he goes through the motions, and Fletcher berates him yet again. And this
Yeah,
is something that has happened over and over and over. So he berates him yet again. And by this point, Andrew is at his breaking point, guys. So he gets the one single tear thing that you kind of see. And Fletcher's like, "Oh my God, not the one single tear thing. Are you upset?" And he goes at him, and just like
yeah,
earlier, "Are you upset? Or are you not upset? Are you upset? Or are you not upset?" And he's literally right up in his face. And okay, so to switch gears for a moment, for those of you who know, J.K. Simmons, he had a different character that he played about
mm,
30 years ago by the name of Vern Schillinger on Oz. And essentially, guys, Fletcher is if Vern became a music instructor. Go ahead.
yeah. So essentially, after that, he then says, "Hey, if you want the part, you got to practice for it." So Andrew, he starts drumming and drumming and
Yep,
drumming to
yep.
the point that his hand starts blistering up, right? And he's literally bleeding and whatnot. And I'm just like, if you're pushing your students that hard, you're obviously doing something
You
wrong.
know, I have a personal anecdote to share with you guys regarding that. And I remember when I was in high school and I was learning basketball, and my own basketball coach taught us or told us about how these guys would shoot the ball until their fingertips bled. And I was thinking, even back then, that that was crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, that happens, and then like Fletcher then brings in a new, because Andrew has practiced Whiplash so much that he knows it by heart, right? And the guy
Yeah,
that
this
is
is important.
essentially the guy that he gave Andrew his folder, right? Because Andrew's the backup. He gave him his folder, and Andrew kind of set it down for just a second. But before that, the Fletcher had basically said, "If I see one of these floating around, I'll kill you." Right? He actually says that, guys. Again, as a music teacher, that's just no. Even as just
So
a normal teacher, you shouldn't be doing that. So Andrew, he sets it down just for a second so he could grab a soda, right? And then the folder is missing somehow. And, Fletcher says what he said. And again, I think this is also another thing that Fletcher, he sees such potential in Andrew that he probably did that on purpose. Because then Andrew's like, "Yeah, I know Whiplash by heart." And he's like, "Well, your memory better be good." And then he plays it and they win first place at this competition.
So he's now the chair, but going back, Fletcher decides to bring in this other guy. He's kind of like a rock influenced type of drummer. And suddenly he's like the new pet project. And this is all a psychological chess game of chess, guys, throughout the whole thing. It's the he's trying to instill the jealousy into Andrew. It's all sick and twisted from a psychological standpoint that he does this. But he brings this other guy in. It turns out they go through this whole motion where they're going through drummer after drummer after drummer until they get this one sound that Fletcher just has to hear for him to know that it's perfect and that the rest of the band can do the piece with him. And he even calls the rest of the band musicians as if the drummers don't mean anything.
Yeah. And he's like, we will do this right until these drummers can get the tempo right,
So
right?
with that, they start at 9 o'clock and they're not done until 2 o'clock. For 5 hours, he drills them on this. Meanwhile, on in
Andrew
another
literally
aspect of the
starts
movie,
drumming until he bleeds, right? And then Fletcher is finally like, Andrew, you got the part, but you alternates wipe the blood off of my drum set.
yep, yep, that is just cold hearted. And in another aspect of the movie, because of Fletcher's treatment of Andrew throughout, Andrew had a girlfriend, guys. She was a very nice girl who could have made him very happy, and they could have been a very sweet couple. And that's what the movie told us. But Fletcher won out. So, with all this, guys, it leads up to this big dramatic thing where Andrew, he has to get to this competition on time because if he doesn't, he's going to lose his spot. And he gets into a car accident in the midst of it all. And his car rolls over and he gets out. He's bloody. There's glass everywhere. And he still makes it to the competition. And he still performs in it.
But he's so worn down at that point that he can't even keep up with the drumming. And so then Fletcher like stops it all, tells Andrew to get off, and then Andrew kind of gets pushed to his breaking point and actually attacks Fletcher.
So he attacks Fletcher, and this leads to an investigation because previously Fletcher had mentioned the student they were listening to a piece of that he claimed had died in a car accident. But what had really happened was that Fletcher had drove this poor student
To self
to
deletion.
self sleep with the fishes.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, Andrew finally starts to see this guy for who he really is. You think? Exact plot twist. He comes back because he sees that Fletcher's down on his luck. He goes to see him. It's a few months later. He goes to see him. Him and Fletcher have a conversation. Fletcher brings him in for this big musical number that they're going to do.
And then before they start, Fletcher says to Andrew, he's like, I know it was you. And then basically performs a piece that Andrew's not familiar with, in which then to just really get back at Andrew, and Andrew, in a moment of, he like goes back and embraces his father, but then he basically gives his father this look of like, I'm not gonna let him be better. I'm not gonna let him get the best of me. And so he gets back on the drum set, and before Fletcher can then announce the name of the piece, Andrew starts performing it, right? And he's like, I'll cue you, I'll cue all you guys in. And then Fletcher is like, he gives him a look of like, oh, I see how this is gonna go.
So this last performance is Andrew giving it his all, his blood, his sweat, his tears, everything for this one moment. And in this one moment, him and Fletcher finally see eye to eye, person to person. That is how it ends.
Yep. Which I would like to say that they kind of leave it vague of the ending here, but I like to think of it as that Fletcher finally respects Andrew. This whole
And
time, he doesn't really respect him, but he also knows that
of
Andrew has
course,
great potential.
with the allegations and whatnot against Fletcher, it's highly unlikely that he could have been anything more than where he was. Perhaps maybe Andrew was finally, with that one performance, able to overcome whatever self esteem issues he had and became a very successful musician. We'll never know.
Yeah,
But with that being said, guys, final rating for the film. Man, this is a 5 out of 5. You definitely got to check it
yeah,
out. What
it's
say
also
you?
a 5 out of 5. Yeah,
From the cinematography to the way that it was directed to the acting to the
I
jazz
mean,
set pieces, everything about it. And the fact that they only did it for such a little budget and
this
what they
movie
put
won
together for it.
3 freaking Oscars. It won Best Sound Mixing, Best Film Editing, and Best Supporting Actor for J.K. Simmons. I feel like that Miles Teller was robbed of Best Actor at that point as well because he puts in such an incredible performance in the film.
However, I gotta say that with the current climate, I think it would be unfortunate, but it's very hard to see that if a movie like Whiplash could even be made today because of the actual human connections that are explored there and the relationship. Many people today cannot handle those type of things, and therefore they try to keep it from being made.
Yeah,
So, with that also being said, though, guys, hey, gotta say that that's just our opinion. And we also got to say one other thing about that, and that, of course, is that if you have seen Whiplash and you believe that it is the worst J.K. Simmons film of all time, then clearly you've never seen Spider Man 3.
uh,
Yep, you're welcome for that. But hey, also remember this, guys. We're
we're
just
just
two guys with a YouTube show.
okay. Yep.
Okay,
I don't remember how it went because it's
no,
been so long.
yeah. Okay. We'll get back to that. We'll
Yep.
work on that.
Yep.
With that being said, guys, we'll see you guys next time. And until next time, there's only one thing left for us to say, and that, of course, is
Peace
peace and
and
love
love
from
from
Diddy
Danny
and
and
Son.
Son.
Bye.
Bye.